Now we have almost 15 minutes before the break for questions and discussions. So far I have received only one person willing to discuss some issues, and I would like to ask the others who would like to engage in the discussion. And if you want to ask, you can ask directly from where you are sitting. Okay, since Eminatze Yeva was the first to register, I would like to ask him to take the floor.
Dear Chairperson, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say some words about the Chechen history of this period here told. As you know, in 1953, the Chechens were in exile because in 1944, February, the total nation was deported to Siberia, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzia. As a result of the deportation, approximately 70% of the Chechen population were exterminated. Those who remained alive spent 13 years in exile in the conditions of the most severe moral and physical violence. In 1957, the Chechens were granted the right to return to their homeland. When Leonid Brezhnev came to power in the Soviet Union, a new period of the communist oppression began for Chechens. The policy of Russification of the Chechens started gaining an especial strength. Only the Russian language was used in all spheres of activities and all institutions of education. All the mosques, national schools were closed, and the activities of the Chechen institutions were greatly limited. Restrictions on the employment and factories and enterprises, as well as enrolling in schools and institutions of higher education, were applied to the Chechens. In pursuit of work, the Chechens were forced to leave the native country, but at the same time, the Russians were provided with privileged conditions. The processes of democratization, which began at the end of the 80s in the former USSR, gave the Chechen hope for a better future. The Chechens declared the independence. What had happened after that, you know, Russian two aggressive wars against Chechnya, massive victims of the Chechen population.
I'll say it in Lithuanian. I will mention two documents, how Chechens are assessed by communists. The then chairman of the Presidium of the former Communist Party, back in 1960, on the 1st of December 1960, Leonid Brezhnev signed an order regarding people who are posing the biggest threat for the state, placing in the labor camps. The second document I would like to mention, a document signed by Chebrikov in July 1988, an order according to which Chechen anti-Soviet activity report should be made. So, as you see, the Chechens have been eternal enemies of Russia. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. Certainly, it's very hard to place the experience of the whole nation in 3 minutes. Nevertheless, thank you very much. If possible, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself. Norbertas Penkaitis. In brief, Dr. Jakubčionis mentioned All Saints' Day back in 1956 in Kaunas and Rasų cemetery. I took part in those events myself. At the grave of the unknown soldier, it was not only the three-colored flag, but also people heard slogans. Long live Hungary, long live Poland, and Khrushchev, go away. The national anthem was sung by people, including big amounts of youngsters. Everyone started marching in the direction of the center. Quite of a sudden, a group of NKVD officers appeared on Vytauto Avenue. They probably did not have the order to shoot at people. We managed to pass them. And then, you know, there is an NKVD building. We threw a few stones into the windows. Civil and KVD officers ran out. They detained some of us, and the rest of us managed to escape. On the following day, there was an article in the press, and next year we had practically no possibility to approach the grave of the unknown soldier, whereas 1 year later the graveyard was disintegrated altogether. Thank you very much. As we see at the peak of the resistance movement, it was the young people who were always most active. Whether it's 1960 or 1988, perhaps they are just getting older year after year, and then they join the movement on another level. I saw someone else willing to ask. Emanuel Zingeris, perhaps? Thank you, Arvidas. My first question would be to the Ukrainian colleague, I believe. I have received a reward. I don't know who should I give it back to for from Ukrainian authorities to memorize Holodomor. Could you please tell me, is the refusal from Holodomor concept come from the then Ukrainian authorities, or were they mediators from other neighboring countries, do you think? How was this campaign organized in Ukraine with the hands of the authorities? And refusal of Holodomor concept adopted in times of President Yushchenko. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation at the same time. Another question would go to Dr. Jakubčionis. From your own experience, perhaps Mr. Anušauskas could add something as well, because he's a historian as well. What proportion of Lithuanian residents was broken, do you think, and become Domo Sovieticus? And what percentage of people refused to recognize the Soviet power before 1990? What would you think?
Thank you for the question. I applied for my English. I'm just learning English, and I try answer in English. I think Ukrainian authorities now changed your evolution about Holodomor just under pressure, just under influence from Russia. And now Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych speaks some sentences from like Russian politics, not like Ukrainian politics.
I would like to reply to Mr. Zinger's question. Some time ago, we were discussing it together with my colleague Anušauskas. When people adapt to the Soviet regime, the question is very simple. We can ask as well, when do Lithuanian youngsters go to the Soviet army to serve the Soviet army? So the breakthrough happened in about 1950, which means that the category able to adapt is formed. However, I would like to stress that to adapt doesn't mean to reconcile with the Soviet regime. If it was the same, we wouldn't have needed KGB efforts and the theory that Homo Sovieticus was formed. I would reject it because I wouldn't approve of that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have needed KGB. Well, I would like to add that Dr. Vetrovich was dismissed from work after the political system and politicians changed in Ukraine. And certainly historians' work is assessed as very important in formulating the public opinion. And it goes without saying that if before, previously, we used to hear that you can't lose anything but your chain, historians would lose very much if you take the computer, PC, away from them. And if he or she has a PC, he or she is able to do what is important. We still have a few minutes before the break. So speaking about Homo Sovieticus, back in 1988, when the Communist Party conducted a sociological research as to how many people are not atheists, half of them answered they are not atheists and they celebrate religious holidays and festivals. So the composition of the Communist Party in Lithuania was not as it was required by ideology. Thank you. Rimantas Morkvėnas. I would have a question to our guest from Romania about Securitate agents. Today, what about lustration in Romania? As far as I know, Securitate was really overall, so there must be a lot of agents there today.
Hi. A very painful point for us. The former officers of the Securitate are well and prosperly, I think, and enjoying their high pensions. Nobody does them anything. We are trying to introduce a lustration law, but with no success so far. My institute had a few panel. We are trying to find some officers who are really proven to be criminal, torturers, and be deferred to justice. And this is a long, long process, and we are still waiting for the results. So I don't know what else to answer you. Maybe the earlier opening of the archives, of the secret archives, would be a point in plus for us. But maybe in time we will be able to access those secret documents and find out their names. Nowadays, their names are being public in the official monitor in Romania. So, if anybody is interested about his former qualities of officer in the Securitate, could know. Thank you.
Aš dar matau daugiau norinčių klausyti, bet vis dėlto susitarkim taip, jeigu klausti, tai dar dviem paskutiniam klausimam, nepasisakymam, nes nenorim užlaikyti konferenciją pagal grafiką, tai prašau, vienas ir tada jūs. Tai klausimas.
Ačiū visiems pranešėjams. Sigitas Marčiukaitis.
Sigitas Marčiukaitis. I would like to thank all the speakers, especially Clara Maris and others as well. Is there any research like as to the methods applied by KGB? Are they applied in market and democracy times? Is this research being methods? How these methods are applied in Romania? Thank you very much once again, because we conduct this research for 17 years. I mean, agents of the new generation in Lithuania. And the weakness of higher educational institutions. Monika Kariniauskaitė from Genocide Research Center, and I have a more methodological question to Clara Maris again. I enjoyed your presentation a lot, and especially the ideas expressed reminded me of a French philosopher, Michel Foucault, metaphor, the view of the society. I would like to ask you, do you think this methodology could be applied for the communistic ideology research? What do you think? Thank you.
I'm not sure I correctly understood the ideas. The question.
Maybe I could explain in English. Do you know the French sociologist and philosopher Michel Foucault?
I heard of his name, but I'm not familiar with his research. I'm sorry.
Okay, so never mind. Thank you anyway.
Ask me directly what you mean. What
I mean, he was doing research about the society where all society becomes like a prison where everybody is like KGB, you know. It was like seeing everybody and.
Okay. During these 2 days, talking with my other colleagues, I realized that we aren't so different, because in Romania it also had been established at the KGB school. So the method applied in Romania, they're similar to the method applied in your country, in the other Baltic Republic, or in Poland, in Czech Republic, whatever. So I think the only thing changed is the name of the perpetrators. the victims are the victims, no matter where we find them. So I try to approach with sensibility about this period, because those victims who were abused back then were still very unhappy today. So I'm trying to understand their suffering and present it to you, so by understanding, to help them, to comfort them. So this is, I think, we all should do. Thank you.
Thank you. Na, aš galbūt pamėginsiu atsakyti,
Let me
kiek supratau,
take up a couple of your questions
gerbiamo Marčiukaičio klausimą.
from Mr. Marčiukaitis in particular. I do realize that oftentimes when we speak about the secret services, we want to compare it with the present, with the past. We are tempted to say that nothing's changed. The suffering of the man is unchanged, but the state and its environment, democracy, and new conditions provide new opportunities for the control of special services. I would refrain from comparison of the past and the present, because this would be unfair vis-à-vis the persons who are now working in the secret services. The former KGB agents are no longer working in the Lithuanian security forces. We may criticize illegal actions and misuse of power. We may make them public, and democracy allows us to do that. It doesn't limit your rights. Let us leave the past to the past and understand what are the key differences between the past and the present. Let us not simplify the past. Thank you. I now start the 1-hour break until 3 p.m.